Hey, what's up, everyone? Sam here, Wall Street Mastermind. I'm back today with another client interview for you guys. This time with Travis, and Travis has a probably similar background to a lot of you out there because I talk to so many of you, and I kind of get a sense for the type of backgrounds that people usually have. But Travis is an interesting story because he actually originally went to community college for the first 2 years after high school, and then he transferred to a non-target school, and then he actually found out about banking a bit late. So he, didn't really do a junior summer internship in banking, but I'm happy to say that today he's recently accepted an offer at an investment bank after coming to us in, I believe, late February of senior year. So very, very late in the game, but we were able to help him get to a great outcome. And so wanted to get him on here to talk to you guys a little bit about his experience, and also hopefully give some of you a bit of inspiration if you're kind of sitting in the same boat right now, maybe feeling like you're a bit behind on the process because of your circumstances. So, Travis, thanks for taking the time to come on here and talk to us today.
Yeah, no worries. I'm happy to be here.
Awesome. So I guess before we start, if you could maybe, I know I just gave like a very high level introduction, but if you could give people a little bit of a background on yourself, like what school did you go to? Um, what'd you major in? Like, what were your what kind of candidate were you on paper? Let's give people a little more specifics.
Yeah, so I know you kind of touched base on it at the very beginning. I started out at a junior college called Blinn College for the first 2 years.
Mm,
And I was on a sort of special program where I was taking half of my classes there and half of my classes at Texas A&M.
mm,
After 2 years, if you had the required GPA, you were able to transfer into A&M's business school, which is what I did. And so I transferred into their finance program
mm.
as a junior.
Got it. Got it. Okay. And then you graduated this, I guess, what, 5 months ago, right?
Yeah, just about.
I was a class of 2019. And when did you decide that you wanted to pursue investment banking?
It was always a thought, but I'd say when it really became, priority number one was right around February or March of my senior year. So super, super late into the game.
Okay, so like right around when you came to me, basically.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. So you pretty much decided you want to do banking, realized that you were super late, and then decided to get some help right away.
Yeah, exactly.
Got it. Okay. Well, that was smart. I mean, like I know a lot of because a lot of time people by the time they come to me, they've already tried a bunch of stuff on their own and it hasn't worked, and then they come to me and it's like, well, we could have just helped you from the start, right? So what were some of the challenges you were having at the time? I mean, obviously, transfer usually, if people transfer from community college and they don't get to they don't get to their school until junior year, that already kind of sets them back in terms of the recruiting timeline, right?
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, because
Um,
no,
yeah,
go ahead.
yeah, that's definitely one of the biggest ones was that by the time that I got into A&M, I was a junior, and at that point, I think most of the people who were going the traditional route had already just got done doing recruiting for their junior internship.
Mm,
So I had just missed that boat.
right.
On top of that, I just didn't have any direction. All I knew was sort of the few bulge bracket banks out there, and I didn't know anything about their processes or sort of how to play the game or anything like that.
Right. Right. And what like obviously, A&M is not like a target score or anything, but there were some people at A&M who were getting into banking, right? Like what type of students are at A&M were actually getting in?
Yeah, so the kids from A&M that got into banking, they were all a part of this program offered by A&M called Aggies on Wall Street, and
Mm,
That's sort of like a fast track banking program that's really, really selective to get into, and you have to apply as a sophomore, I think.
Mm,
So, I I wasn't really eligible for that either. Um, this was sort of the main route for A&M kids if they wanted to get into banking. There was no really like investment banking club on campus that people could help you out with. This was pretty much do or die.
got it. Got it. And okay, so super selective club, but it's not you. I mean, selectiveness aside, it's not like you even had a chance to apply for it because you weren't there as a sophomore. So that's kind of a bummer. Okay, so that was challenging. You weren't part of this club, and then your GPA at the time was around what?
I had a round of 3.3 at the time, so definitely not very competitive either.
Got it. Okay. So GPA was on the lower side, at least for investment banking. Well, I mean, 3.3 is not horrible, but for investment banking, it's definitely on the lower side. Um, and then did you have any like relevant internship experience or anything like that?
I wouldn't say relevant. I had done a real estate acquisition internship
Mhm.
um, my junior summer, so
Okay.
it wasn't crazy relevant experience, but it was something to have on the resume, I guess.
Got it. Was that the only internship you had?
Yeah, that was the only thing that I did.
Okay. Had you tried to apply for like a IB internship for the junior summer or no?
I did, but again, I was just so poorly informed. I all I thought was that there was just a handful of bulge bracket investment banks, and that was it. And those banks are looking at the top of the top, and I just wasn't competitive. So it's pretty easy to figure out how those applications went.
Got it. Okay. So you kind of had an inkling of wanting to do IB already probably by junior year then, since you did go for the junior summer internships.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. But then that didn't work out. You landed this real estate acquisition internship. Did you get a lot of like relevant experience there as far as like transferable skills to IB, or was it like totally different?
Um, I wouldn't say there was a lot of transferable skills. I mean, maybe working in PowerPoint, making pitch books or something like that, but there wasn't any like modeling or anything like that.
Got it. Got it. Okay. So part of the challenge for you too was probably also like even though I mean, having one internship on your resume by senior is not a lot, but even the one you did have, you weren't really sure how to make that relevant to banking or what you could even talk about then.
Yeah, 100%.
Got it. Okay. So then you came back senior year from this internship. And then did you basically start applying for full time right away then, or did you wait, or what did you do?
Um, the fall of my senior year, honestly, I don't think I did anything in terms of job hunting. I knew it was in the back of my mind that I needed to do something, but I was honestly just focused on getting a higher GPA or trying to make myself a little bit more competitive, and all of that kind of stuff just sat in the back burner for a while.
Got it. Got it. Which is why you didn't really start thinking about it until like February or March.
Yeah,
By then you were, 2 or 3 months away from graduating.
yeah,
Okay. And the reason you started was it just like, holy crap, I only got 2 or 3 months before I graduate. I got to start now, or it's now or never type of thing.
yeah. That was definitely a part of it.
Yeah, got it. Got it. Okay. And so, like, what type of firms did you apply to? At,
Again, it was just really really poor information that I had, so I was just applied to the most well-known banks and firms that you could think of because I didn't even know that boutique banks and things like that really existed for the most part.
I see.
So yeah, it was just this sort of big names that pretty much everybody knows to apply to.
Yeah, like Goldman Sachs, Morgan Stanley, JP Morgan,
Exactly.
BAML, Citi, that type of bank. Okay, got it. Understood. So then, like, how um how are you like finding these opportunities back then? Like before Wall Street Mastermind, like how did you go about looking for jobs and stuff?
Um, I'd say the same way that everybody does, sort of just Googling. I would literally just Google investment banking analyst positions in between classes while I was on campus, kind of surfing through LinkedIn. And it was just very, very, I guess, basic way of job hunting.
Yeah, yeah. And like, how many applications would you say you submitted before coming to us, like in total, or ballpark?
I don't know, maybe 10?
Okay,
Yeah, not a lot.
okay. And did you get any interviews from those applications?
No, I got 0 interviews. I think I got a higher view from JP Morgan, but I think that's given to just about anyone who applies.
Right, right. Okay, okay, got it. So basically, was doing a lot of just applying on your own, but kind of lost in terms of how to go about it the right way and not really getting any results. And that's kind of when you came to us. So before we talk a little bit about Wall Street Management, like, what was your motivation for wanting to do banking? Like, why did you want to go for some? I mean, obviously you decided pretty late, but like, what made you want to go for it despite all the challenges and obstacles that were standing in your way?
The biggest thing that appealed to me was definitely exit opportunities. I think it's pretty hard for anybody, my age, to know exactly what they want to do for the rest of their life.
Sure.
So, who knows? Who knows what I want to do 5, 10 years from now? And I figured having an investment banking job or starting out in the industry would, best set me up for anything that I wanted to do later.
Okay. Okay, got it. So it's just like being able to learn as much as possible and having the flexibility to go in whatever direction you want later on, since you don't really know what your, I guess, what your life's calling is yet, right?
Yeah.
Got it. Okay. Okay. So then, were there any resources that you were using prior to Wall Street Mastermind that, like, how did you learn about investment banking and what you needed to do, and how did you like study for this stuff?
Um, Resources, I'd say I have very few. Maybe a few family friends, a professor, or something like Wall Street Oasis. Very, very bare bones. As far as studying for whatever it is that I need to know for interviews, I mean that was probably the worst part of having no direction or from any of these resources. I honestly didn't know what I didn't know, so there was just kind of being pulled in all sorts of different directions at the same time and not really hitting the points that I needed to be.
I see. So were you using like interview guides or just like looking up articles on the internet, or how?
Both, yeah, interview guides, articles, personal like testimonies about interview processes, stuff like that.
I see. Got it. What interview guide did you use specifically?
I think it was the Mergers and Inquisitions interview guide,
Okay, breaking into Wall Street.
something like that. Yeah,
Got it. Okay. So you just like kind of read through it and then what? Try to memorize the answers.
yeah, basically, and it's an interview guide with like 400 or 500 questions or something like that. So
Right.
not exactly efficient.
Right. And do you feel like you actually understood the concepts, or were you just kind of memorizing it without really understanding it?
Definitely, for the most part, memorizing without understanding it. There's a few things that I could understand and apply to different scenarios, but for the most part, a lot of these things I had never even heard of. At A&M, there's very, very few classes that are even relevant to banking, and they're all electives, and they all
Mm.
have very limited number of seats. And
Uh,
so it's not a good equation for success.
got it. Got it. Okay. All right. So the prep wasn't very effective. And then like how did you find out about this? How did you find out about Wall Street Mastermind?
I think because I was sort of digging around on the internet, Facebook kind of picked up on my search history, and I actually got an ad from you guys on Facebook.
Hmm.
And so I had joined the public Facebook group. I was sort of digging around and seeing exactly what was going on. And, I decided to schedule the first intro meeting just to sort of get on the map and learn a little bit more.
Got it. Got it. And then kind of walk us through what happened from there. So we got on a phone call, we talked, you and I talked for the first time, and then you decided that you wanted to do the program, I guess. And then you had to what talk to your family about it, right?
Yeah, so during our first intro call, you gave me your background, and I figured this was, probably the best opportunity that I had to get some help from someone that was really on the inside. And I'm sure you realize this, but like I have a tendency to overthink, like the tiniest, smallest, most insignificant details. And it's really nice to have someone super experienced in your corner to sort of, like take you off of uh those kind of paths. But
Mm.
yeah, so once I had sort of decided, I think this is something that I need to do, I talked to my parents about it, and they were super skeptical, obviously. Yeah, I mean, I think they had the same concerns that just about anybody's family would have for something like this. I mean, it's just some random guy that you met on the internet, and he's trying to sell you something, and
Right.
it just doesn't sound very nice on paper. But
Right.
yeah, but after you talked to him, you gave him the same rundown that you gave me. Um, they sort of got at ease, and we really started to consider it at that point.
Got it. Got it. Yeah. So, because I talked to your mom and your older brother, right? And I remember they had a ton of questions for me, which is cool. Like I talk to people's parents all the time. Brothers, not as much, but I talk to like moms and dads all the time. And obviously they want what's best for you. They just want to make sure that this is actually something that will help you and not just some rando on the internet trying to steal your money, right?
Yeah, and I'm the youngest of the family, so their idea of me is, this gullible kid, and they just assume someone was taking advantage of me automatically.
Right. Right. Yeah, no, parents, well, regardless of whether you're the youngest or not, it's like I feel like parents just inherently always feel like you'll always be a kid in their eyes, right? And they just always think that, they need to protect you and they know best when it's funny because I run into this a lot, but like when it comes to investment banking recruiting, um, 99% of the time the kid actually knows a lot more than the parents, right? Because the kid is the one who actually wants to do it and has been doing all this research on banking and knows like what the recruiting process is like, what the challenges are, what they actually need to do. Whereas for the parents, it's just like they know very vaguely what investment banking is, or maybe they've heard the term, but they don't know what it is exactly. They think it has to do with like investing in stocks or something, and then they have no idea just how hard it is or why you even need help, right? And so that's always a challenge I have to overcome because it's ironic because they want to protect you and they're coming from a place of um, good intentions, but at the same time they're actually not like they don't have all the right context and they're not like super qualified to make an informed decision unless we kind of educate them a little bit, right?
Yeah.
Got it. So, okay, but fortunately, we were able to kind of convince your mom and your brother that this was legit, and then so you came into the program, right? So then talk a little bit, and I think this was again late February of your senior year. So, kind of walk us through your experience in the program. Like, what do we help you with exactly?
Yeah, so I mean, this was everything from interview prep, whether it's behavioral, technical, um, down to landing the interview or even finding opportunities to apply to. Um, I came in super late, and luckily I had an on-campus interview offer pretty soon after, and so it was really really fast. I had to jump straight into interview prep, and I think the interview went fairly well. But since it was such a small firm, I think it was more about technical fit. But I mean, without Wall Street Mastermind, I wouldn't have known anything about what they were going to ask me. Pretty much, I can say 99% of the questions they asked me in those interviews, we had gone over in just those short few weeks that I had with you. Uh,
Wow.
yeah, it's just like I said, like before with my so-called resources, I just didn't have any directions. There was so many information just out on a sheet of paper or out on a message board, but Wall Street Mastermind has this great ability to sort of cut away all the fluff and give you just exactly what you need, and it's
Mm,
packaged in a way that you can digest it in a really really short amount of time, and it's I mean I can't put into words how helpful it was.
got it. Got it. So we helped you with that interview. That was your first interview ever, right?
Pretty much, yeah. That was my first investment banking interview.
Okay. And you actually applied for that through on campus recruiting right before you joined Wall Street Mastermind, right?
I think actually I applied maybe right when I joined, but it was very 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 close.
Oh, okay. Oh, like you joined and then we rushed to like revise all of your resume and cover letters and application materials and
Yeah,
so that you could apply for that in time. Okay.
yeah,
Okay. So right off the bat, you saw the difference in terms of going from not being able to get a single interview to us just doing some work on your applications and then all of a sudden you're starting to get interviews. So that's good. But then that you didn't end up getting that offer, right?
yeah. No, no, I didn't get that one.
Got it. Because that was like your first interview ever, and quite frankly, we were cramming all the interview stuff in just like that week or two before you had the interview. But it
Yeah.
was good experience nonetheless. Like it kind of, I'm guessing you came out of that interview probably feeling a lot more confident than when you were going in and you had never done an interview before. Because now you at least have a taste of what interviewing was like, and you're like it's just totally something you can handle, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. So from that point forward, what happened then? Like obviously you had to keep applying to a lot more places and as many firms as possible, right? And at this point you're probably in like mid-March. So you're like 2 months away from graduating. So there is like a lot of urgency on your side, right?
Yeah. Yeah, so after pretty soon after I didn't get that offer from the on-campus recruiting opportunity, I actually got a super day invite. No, I'm sorry, the higher view invite for Bank of America's full-time analyst program. And I didn't really think much of it. I talked to you about how the best way to approach a higher view was sort of kind of just I definitely put effort into it and went forward with it. Didn't think really much of it because who was I? I was some random kid, no internship experience or no relevant internship experience. Why would I suddenly land a bulge bracket offer? A few months from graduation.
Right.
Uh, and we got really lucky in that I was invited to come back for the super day, and from then it was sort of like a whirlwind. Went to the super day in New York, and it went really really well. There actually wasn't a lot of technicals that one, and it was just a weird process in general. Not a lot of technicals, mostly behaviorals. And that went really really well. And so there was two groups that were interested in me from that point. I got the call back to fly down to Palo Alto to meet their tech team, and this time it didn't go so well. But it wasn't anything that the program had to do with. It was honestly all on my end. Everything that they had asked me, we had gone through one way or another in the program. It's just that this was so rapid fire that you know uh, I guess I wasn't as efficient with my time as I should have been. Otherwise, we would have had this crazy Cinderella story. But if there's honestly no doubt in my mind that if I had started Wall Street Mastermind, even a few months further, then I would have landed that offer as well. But even without Wall Street Mastermind, I wouldn't even have gotten past the higher view probably.
Mm, yeah. I mean, for that one too, I think there were a couple other things going on as well, right? Like one is, like you said, you were so like the BAMO interview for you was so unexpected. Like you were coming to me late February of senior year. you weren't even trying to gun for like a bulge bracket offer, right? Because like at that point, like all the bulge bracket banks have been done with hiring already. But it's like all of a sudden when this thing gets dropped in your lap, um, the natural human tendency is just to be very, very like to want it very badly,
Yeah.
right? And what I found from having worked with a lot of clients is that usually you gotta stay even keeled about these types of things, and that's easier said than done. But it's like usually when you want something too much, then like you get nervous, and then like you don't perform, like you don't play your A game, right? Where it's like if you go on a date with like a super hot girl and you think she's like out of this league, like you probably don't act like yourself, right? And then you don't seem as confident, and like then you're not as attractive, right? It's kind of
Yeah,
like
I
the
mean,
same concept.
even, on top of all that, I mean, this was my second investment banking interview ever at this point, So like, it's not like I had the practice, or anything like that. It was just a crazy experience.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the other thing too is like you had a little bit of bad luck, right, for that last interview where there was like some sort of mix up about them thinking you were late when you actually weren't late.
Yeah, I mean, eh, yeah, but what can you do? It's just things happen. So I mean, I guess it just wasn't for me, but I was glad to at least have the experience.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, so that was a big disappointment. I mean, that was a roller coaster. That was like huge excitement for getting the interview and then probably huge disappointment when you didn't get it.
Yeah, absolutely.
But you had to keep going, obviously, right? And then so take us through the process from there. I mean, like you just kept applying. I mean, I gotta say, you were like a beast in terms of just staying on top of the jobs that are available and applying to all sorts of places out there. As far as I could see, anyway, you were like a hawk, like just watching all the opportunities. But like, how many opportunities would you say you probably applied to in total?
Jesus, I don't know, the hundreds to thousands probably. I mean, there's so many applications that I have outstanding probably that were it never even looked at. But I mean, I can't even say how many. I had so much free time at the time outside of class. I was on campus uh, throughout pretty much the whole day, and obviously I'm not in class all the time. So whatever time I wasn't in class, I was just sort of surfing the web. I instead took the time that I was surfing on Facebook or Twitter, and I just used it to surf LinkedIn or Google for jobs.
Yeah, this was like you're 100% focused on just getting this done. Basically, it was like your number one priority.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, and then ultimately, where did you end up initially after you graduated? Because you did find something, right?
Yeah. So, lucky for me in this sense, I was in a financial modeling class at A&M. It was actually an elective, and the professor he stays in tune with these sort of opportunities and kind of encourages students to apply here and there. And he had a mutual friend from Harvard Business School who had more or less just started up his own private equity firm in Boston. And so he kind of let us know, like, hey, I think for those of you who are looking for an internship, I recommend you apply. And most of the kids in the class were juniors. And so, um, more or less, they might be able to pursue it, but, I was a graduating senior. Most of the guys in my position are looking for full time jobs. And it was also an unpaid internship. And
Mhm.
so it definitely for on paper didn't sound appealing to a senior, but given where I was, no relevant experience, non-target school, not very competitive GPA, I figured I needed something. And
Right.
so I went ahead and I applied to that. And it wasn't a crazy interview process, but um, I think what really helped me out was just sort of understanding the few topics that we covered in the program well enough to the point where I asked really, really detailed questions, and that sort of subtly kind of nudged them towards my direction. And I was really, really lucky in that they chose me.
Mm,
And so I went out to Boston for the summer, and that was really, really great, relevant experience. I finally had something that I could hold an intelligent conversation about, in an interview. Whereas
right,
before it was kind of just spitballing, like, yeah, I put together some PowerPoints, yada yada yada. But I mean, it was nothing really tangible.
right.
Yeah,
And that was they took what, one intern?
they took I think there was 6 or 7 of us total.
Oh, okay. Got it. And but it was unpaid and it started in the summer, so right after you graduated, right?
I graduated on May 9th, and it started on May 20th.
Okay. And how many months did you intern there for?
Uh, I was there until August 20th.
Okay, so you did about 3 months.
Yeah.
Okay. And then it was always the deal that that wasn't going to be an internship that turned into a full-time offer, or what was the deal with that?
Yeah, so I mean, even in the posting, given that they're a new firm, there was never a full-time opportunity. And
Got it. Got it.
yeah,
So then that was just some in your mind. That was just something to get you some relevant experience, kind of hold you over while you continue to look for the real full time opportunity that you needed.
yeah, 100%.
Okay. So then, while you're working there, and you got pretty good experience, right? Like you actually like learned a lot about modeling, and you were doing LBOs and looking at deals and all sorts of stuff, right?
Yeah, I mean, I was even given like client-facing opportunities and things like that. It was crazy.
Wow, that's amazing. So hey, even though it's unpaid, a lot of times you do these unpaid internships, and they're kind of like sort of BS, where you're not really getting a whole lot of responsibilities because they're not paying you anyway, so they don't care. But in this case, even though it was unpaid, you don't really care about that. Like the most valuable thing is just having real deal experience that you can talk about in interviews, right?
Yeah.
Got it. So you got that under your belt. In the meantime, while you're interning, and how many hours were you doing per week on average?
Uh, see, I mean, I don't know, maybe 60 to 70. Uh,
Okay.
Most of the time, I'd say we would leave around 6 to 7. If there was something that we had a deadline,
Okay.
a pressing deadline, we might stay a little longer. But I mean, it wasn't like anywhere near the sort of stress that you might see in like a bulge bracket investment banking internship.
Sure. Okay. So you were doing 60, 70 hours a week and then just recruiting for full time on the side, basically.
Yeah.
Okay. Um, and then I guess let's fast forward through that process. So you kept recruiting. How was full time recruiting going at that point then?
Definitely much better than than it was while I was still in school.
Okay.
Uh, it was a little different because I mean, it seemed like the second that I graduated, all the positions um, that were looking for new grads were asking for some sort of experience or whatever, a year's worth of experience or some sort of obstacle. It seems like the second that I graduated, you know, they said they wanted all these things from me. So in that aspect, the pool definitely shrank a lot.
Mm-hmm.
But based on what we learned in the program, and how you position yourself for these opportunities, suddenly, people were actually willing to listen to me now. And when you have that opportunity and you have the actual substance that you can talk about, things happen. And so overall, I think the opportunity pool was smaller, but more people were willing to talk to me just because I was able to um, sort of market myself a certain way based on what we learned in the program,
Yeah.
and the fact that I had some more relevant experience now.
Yeah. So opportunities pool is smaller because I think what you're saying is like, look, if you don't go through the normal recruiting pipelines while you're still in school, by the time you graduate, you pretty much fall into like the experienced higher candidate pool as opposed to like the undergrad hiring pipeline, right? And so if you're in an experienced higher candidate pool, a lot of these places since it's a lateral hire, they want someone who's already had at least a year or at least some investment banking experience under their belt.
Yeah.
right? Okay, got it. So that was tough, but fortunately, you got this internship experience at the private equity firm, which helped you out a lot. And then, but more importantly, on the networking side of things, because you knew how to network effectively and how to kind of make yourself stand out, probably in situations before where people wouldn't even respond to you when you try to network with them. Now they were actually giving you the time of day.
Yeah, absolutely.
Got it. Okay. Yeah, and a lot of times, I mean, for a lot of people, like, they're like, they just need an opportunity, right? Like people always say, if I could just get in front of them and get to talk to them, I feel like, I'll have a shot. But the trouble is, like, I don't know what I'm doing wrong to make it so that they won't even talk to me in the first place,
Yeah.
right? Okay, got it. So ultimately, then, where did you end up, or where are you going to be going? I know you're starting work soon in a few days, right?
Yeah, so I actually pretty much just accepted an offer just about 1 or 2 weeks ago at a private bank down here in Houston on their energy team.
Okay.
And funny story. This is they were actually looking for an experienced hire. They were looking for someone with at least a year's worth of oil and gas or investment banking experience.
Mm,
And just like what we just talked about, um, it was just how I networked and how I was able to sort of get my foot in the door to get them to sort of listen to my whole pitch that they decided to move forward with me. Otherwise, if I had just applied on LinkedIn, just like everybody else, they would have tossed my resume in the trash because right off the bat I don't have the experience they're asking for.
right. Right. Yeah, because you didn't have a year of experience, and so they actually, I'm sure they interviewed a lot of other people that did have a year of experience, but they still chose you over them.
Yeah.
That's amazing, man. And for that interview process, like, what did you have to do for it? Like, what were the different rounds, and kind of what did you have to show them to be able to get the job?
So first was a sort of basic intro call with HR to sort of get basic information on me as the candidate, where I'm staying, uh, expected salary, things like that. Nothing really related to investment banking itself. From then, they moved me on to an analyst. Um, who actually no, the analyst was supposed to call me, but there's something had come up, so they sort of expedited the process and just gave me a modeling test in place of a technical interview.
Hmm.
And so I had, they
It's
said,
probably made it harder for you as opposed to easy.
yeah, yeah, because all we were doing for the most part was preparing for these technical questions. Application is a little different, but luckily we touched base on that as well in the program. So they sent me the materials on a weekend. I had 2 hours to complete it and send it back. And after that, I met the director in Houston face to face for a quick coffee chat, just to you know get to know each other a little bit more. Being that it's a fairly small team, I think they wanted to get the team dynamic right.
Yeah,
And once I met with him, he I guess everything was good on his end. He put me in touch with the associate and the other director in DC that we'd be working with.
yeah.
They got to know me a little bit better, and then you know, um, I think 4 hours after that call, he called me back and gave me an offer.
Awesome, man. So I guess sounds like the hardest part of that process was probably the modeling test then.
Yeah, definitely.
So you had to build what type of model in a 2 hour time frame? Was it a three statement model?
Yeah, it was just a three-statement model, but it wasn't like they gave you a template to fill in with certain assumptions. It was actually sort of like a case study format.
Hmm.
They gave you this paragraph or page full of just information that you had to sort of create your own model around and make it tidy and all that kind of fun stuff.
Hmm. Hmm. And I mean, can you imagine, like, for most people, and I guess, like, that makes sense because, like, since they're looking for experienced hire, probably a lot of their candidates have built models before, so that was like a reasonable expectation, right? But uh, for someone who's just coming out of undergrad and maybe doesn't really have that much work experience, if you think about how people usually prep for these interviews, where they're just taking the Breaking a Wall Street guide and memorizing answers to 400 technical questions or whatever. I mean, there's no way in hell you're going to be able to build a three-statement model from scratch just with some assumptions if that's how you're learning this, right?
Yeah.
Like what you absolutely have to have is like application knowledge, meaning like you've truly understand the concepts, how all the statements link together, what are the line items, what do they mean, how are they all linked together, and then being able to like model that out in an Excel spreadsheet. It's just like that's how we try to kind of I mean we don't like that's how we try to teach our clients their technicals is like making sure you actually really understand the concepts behind it and not just using brute force memorization because that doesn't get you very far, right?
And what I really liked about the program in that aspect was that, like I had said earlier, it's just packaged in a certain way and presented in a certain way that's so very very easily understood and digested by anybody. And
Mm.
so I had such a short amount of time. I couldn't deal with all the sort of fluff that all the other guides had. I needed something that uh, would get me to the end point as soon as possible. And I think the program did exactly that.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting that you mentioned the fluff because one complaint I get from people a lot is there's so much stuff in these guides, and people know that they're not going to get asked all of these things in the interviews because these interviews are usually like 30 minutes, right? So they feel like they're wasting a bunch of time and they don't know what to focus on. I think the reason why the guys throw like hundreds of questions at people is because that's their way of quote unquote adding value, right? Like, look at how comprehensive our guide is. Look at all this information. This is how we justify, you know, charging you whatever the hundreds of dollars that you pay for these guys. But in reality, that's kind of counterproductive, right? Like, more is not always better. Sometimes less is more, right? It's about like our goal. We take the entirely opposite approach, which is the whole point of our clients working with us is so that they can get from point A to point B in the shortest amount of time, right? I don't think anybody really cares how much information you give them or like how many hours. What I always thought was like, look, if I could get you there in 20 hours versus I could get you there in 200 hours, same outcome, like which one would you rather have, right? And everybody always wants to get there in 20 hours, right? And so that's our philosophy is like, we don't want any fluff. We want to get you there in the most straight line way possible, right? And because a lot of times, like with investment banking recruiting, there's a lot of urgency, right? The longer you wait, um, the less likely it is that you're going to find a job, right? Like your probability of succeeding goes down, and the quality of the firms that are available also goes down, right? Because usually the best firms get kind of filled up first.
Yeah.
Um, so I think really at the end of the day, one of the biggest value propositions, and I'm sure you'll agree with this too, is just how much time it saves you, right? Like from not having to get distracted by unnecessary things or not having to do a lot of trial and error and experimenting on your own because you're not really sure what works and what doesn't. And just having like a step-by-step proven game plan and frameworks to follow. And all you got to do is go out and execute on it.
Yeah, definitely.
Cool, man. Um, so I guess, do you have any last minute advice for students who are listening, or maybe people who are kind of in a similar situation that you were in before, found out about banking a little bit later for whatever reason, maybe don't have a whole lot of relevant experience, maybe they go to non-target schools, maybe their GPA is not as good, whatever, right? Like they have all these obstacles sitting in front of them, seemingly impossible outcome. Like, what would you tell them?
Huh. Uh, first thing, I guess you know, just be willing to put in the work, I guess. I know that's pretty much what everyone tells anybody in these situations, but definitely be ready and willing to work hard, towards this goal. Um, it's definitely not going to be easy. And I think the second thing is be resilient. I mean, I know you have like some studs in your program. They get every single offer and every single interview requests and all that kind of stuff. But I think those are special cases, and props to them. But that wasn't my path.
Mm,
Um, you know, I went from, like I said before, I went from having a non-competitive GPA, non-target school to being within reach of working at a bulge bracket bank in California. And to have that sort of fall apart at the last second, the very very last second, right before the finish line, was devastating.
mm.
So I really had to sort of readjust and refocus and get back on track after that. So definitely be ready and be willing to take the hits. I think it's very very likely that the first one's probably going to be a no. Maybe the second one might even be a no, but all you need is one. That could be the third or fourth.
Right, right, absolutely. Yeah, and I always tell people, it's funny that you mentioned some of those quote unquote studs in the program or whatever. I always tell people like, don't play the comparison game, right? Because like, you're just really at the end of the day, you're competing with yourself. You're trying to be the best version of yourself. I always tell every client before they come in the program, like, one thing that we do differently at Wall Street Mastermind is that we acknowledge that every single client is different, right? Like you guys have different backgrounds, you go to different schools, different grades, different experiences. You guys are starting at different points in time, in the recruiting timeline. A lot of those uh, people who get those phenomenal outcomes, like they start like freshman and sophomore years, right? Which is really nowadays, like if you want to get into like the whatever bulge bracket elite boutique banks, it's kind of like how early you have to start, which is kind of ridiculous. But it is what it is, right? Like everybody's got their own journey, and our goal is to just always help every single one of our clients get a much better outcome than they could have on their own, regardless of what their starting point is, right? Um, and so I think, we definitely were able to accomplish that for you, as well as for most of our clients. And so that's really fulfilling for us, right? But I think you made another good point too, which is like at the end of the day, I mean, we're here to help, but ultimately you as the client had to put in the work,
Yeah.
right? Like you had to be super resilient, right? You had to decide how you wanted to show up. And, when there were setbacks along the way, and because I'm not saying that there's not going to be any setbacks, and you're not the only client that has setbacks. Like a lot of our clients go through some rejections before they get, their first offer, right? That's very normal. But it's how you kind of deal with that adversity and how you kind of come back from that. Like I always tell people, like a setback is a setup for a comeback, right? And so it's how you come back from that that's going to go a long ways in determining whether you have that ultimate success or not, right? And of course, along the way, having resilience alone is not enough. You need to have the right frameworks and the right strategies and the knowledge that you need to succeed. And that's all stuff that we can help you with, right? But what kind of the internal stuff, we kind of coach you on that a little bit, but a lot of that comes from you, and how you are as a person, right? So it's really a partnership is how I think about it. It's like it's a two-way street where I got to hold up my end of the bargain and you got to hold up your end of the bargain for us to get the outcome that we both want, right? And if just one of us doesn't do what we're supposed to do, then it's not going to work out, right?
Definitely.
Awesome, man. So look, I think your story is like super inspiring, because I know there are a lot of people out there who like are in very similar situation as you, because I hear similar stories all the time. So I really appreciate you coming on here and just sharing your story with everyone. And you're probably giving some people, some of our listeners right now, some hope that hey, this can be done, right? Or even if they think, oh, I'm already a senior and it's too late or whatever, it's like if you're determined enough and if you're resourceful enough, you don't take no for an answer, um, and you get the proper guidance that you need, so that you can minimize the amount of time you have to spend on this process, it can absolutely be done, right? So thank you for sharing your story, and huge congratulations, obviously, on getting to this point. And I can't wait to see kind of what else you have in store, like ahead, um, in the future for you. And for all of our listeners right now, it's like, hey, if you feel like you're in a similar situation as Travis, or maybe you're not even in a similar situation. Maybe you're in a better situation than he is. And it's like, if Travis could do it, seriously, like, what reason is there for you to not be able to do this, right? So if you want like the type of help that Travis got, and you just want that guidance to help you kind of turn things around, like, you're capable of getting a banking job, but right now maybe you're just a little bit lost, or you kind of don't have the direction that you need, and you just need that little extra push to get over the hump, then I want to invite you to just book a free strategy session with us, right? It's just the first call for us to get to know you and learn more about your situation, see what it is that you're having challenges with, and figure out together what the best strategy is for you. And then if you want us to help you implement that strategy, and if we think that we can help you, then we can talk about what that might look like, right? But we don't always work with everybody we talk to because we have a limited bandwidth here. And so regardless, either way, whether we work together or not, that's totally fine. Our goal is to just provide you with a lot of value on that call and give you a lot of clarity on your situation so that you can move forward with or without us and be much better off than you would be on your own, right? So if that's something that you're interested in, you can go book a time that works for your schedule at www.wallstreetmastermind.com/apply. And just so you guys know, the street is abbreviated to ST. So it's wall, ST, mastermind.com/apply. Okay. And, I look forward to either me or someone on my team look forward to speaking with you and learning more about how your process is going and figuring out a way to help you get to the end goal that you're looking for. Okay. So that'll be it for today, guys. Travis, again, thank you so much for, spending an hour of your time on the weekend to come on here and talk to us. Best of luck with your new job that's starting in a few days, and definitely keep in touch and don't be a stranger. We tell everyone, once you're a part of the Wall Street Mastermind family, or what we call the Wolf Pack, we're always going to be here to support you, um, forever, basically. So um, don't be a stranger, and I'm sure I'll talk to you soon.
Yeah, definitely. I'm happy to come on. Hopefully I was able to make a difference and inspire somebody, because I remember when I first started the program, I was listening to these client interviews, and I definitely wanted to be a success story.
Well, and now you are, man. So it's come full circle. So awesome. Well, have a great weekend. All right. And I'll talk to you. All right, guys. Thanks for listening. We'll be back with more of these very, very soon.